Why don't we go ahead and get started? We appreciate everybody joining. Good
Good
evening and welcome to West Shore Candidates Forum. I know people are still hopping on the call. This forum, as the one in the spring, is sponsored by Capital Region Stands Up. I'm Tim Jackson and will serve as tonight's host. And I'd like to thank you guys, the candidates, for joining tonight, taking the time out of your schedule to interface in this virtual way. And I'd also like to thank those of you from the voting public who have also taken the time to interface with some of those, and maybe all of those who may be serving other independent jurisdictions in the near future. And just by way of explaining, who's on the call and how the format's going to work, this forum includes candidates of both major parties, covering a variety of different positions across the West Shore. In all, there's 16 candidates who have agreed to join this forum in order to introduce themselves and provide information to the voting public with a broad overview of their platform, and also with the opportunity for you to ask direct questions where time allows. As you know, the local government impacts local decisions and may impact many of the facets in our lives. So each of these candidates, if elected, could make decisions that impact certain parts of their communities. And just by way of areas, municipalities, jurisdictions, candidates from Campfield, East Pennsboro, Hampton Township, Lower Allen Township, New Cumberland, and Upper Allen Townships are all scheduled to be on tonight's call. Some of you have also joined the school board primary forum that we had a few months ago in the spring. And so that format will echo this same format in terms of the way that it flows. There will be a couple of differences and tweaks just to accommodate the number of candidates that are going to be on this call as compared to the other one. And I'll explain those here briefly. First, we're scheduled for about a 60-minute introduction section. And so the candidates will spend anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes per person introducing themselves and laying out the main positions and messages that they'd like the voting public to know. Our timekeeper, Jan, will provide the candidates with a 30-second timer at 4 minutes and 30 seconds, should the speaker use the entire 5-minute allotment. And once that notice is provided, the speaker will need to summarize her message within the final 30 seconds before we move on to the next candidate. So I appreciate staying within that 5-minute timeline so we can make sure that everybody's on the call who has a message that they'd like to send.
Tim, I'm going to put the time in the chat, so that ought to pop up and everybody should be able to see it.
Thank you. In order to determine the order of speakers, we'll work alphabetically. And so it just so happens that this meeting is at roughly the same time as a Camp Hill school board meeting. But as it were, Camp Hill begins with a C, so they would have begun first anyway. And so just for to continue how that would work, Camp Hill would go first, and then all the other jurisdictions that I went through would follow, ending up with Upper Allen Township being the last. And so the same would occur with those who are also introducing themselves. They will also do so alphabetically. I'll call on each speaker in order described above. Please start by stating your name, the position for which you are a candidate, along with the municipality. If you then could follow up with a brief overview of those issues that's most important to you and how you briefly plan to address them. If desired, you're also encouraged to provide your social media or contact information for those in the community who may wish to follow up with additional questions and commentary about your candidacy. After the first section, the second section of Q&A will begin. That's approximately scheduled for 30 minutes, where is just laid out. If you could submit questions also via the chat, in addition to what Jan's doing with the timing. Those questions will be addressed, and thank you, Alyssa, for helping to compile. Alyssa will compile those questions in the order that they're received, and then ask those questions of the candidates that were posed. And so, in addition to the questions, the timing for each, like I said, would be about a minute for each of the candidates to respond. And please, again, keep it at that minute. There will be no timer, like a 30-second timer as in the intro section, but we will indicate when the minute is over. Finally, in order to find out more information about Capital Region Stands Up, please go to crstandsup.org or find us on Facebook, where this will also be posted, as Alyssa pointed out at the top of the call. And so this obviously is being recorded. I think everybody got the message when they joined, and that will be available for anybody who is on the Facebook page. With that, Michelle Forbes of Camp Hill, running for the Borough Council. Please start us off by introducing yourself, for which you will have a maximum of 5 minutes. Thank you.
Should we go ahead? I'm not sure I see Michelle on here.
All right. Jennifer Hoover, please.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I'm Jennifer Hoover. I am seeking a 4-year term for Camp Hill Borough Council. Before I get into who I am and platform, etc., you can find me on social media at Hoover4. That would be the number Hoover4 Camp Hill. And on email, you can find me on Gmail at hoover4camphill@gmail.com if you have any questions. And in regarding why I'm running and some background information, in my experience and as a parent, I really want our community to be safe and accessible. And some decisions made by prior council and council members had kind of questioned my faith in them, and making me feel like our community was less safe and less accessible for pedestrians and students. So that really bothered me as a mother, taxpayer, and homeowner, community member. And so I decided I was going to try and do something about that. And so I decided to run for council, and I'm actually a second-time candidate seeking a term on council. So it's a little daunting to run. But what it only came down to was, given that direction of prior council and my disappointment in them, I knew that if I didn't run, I would regret it. So along with people telling me that they had faith in my ability to do that job, I made that decision to run. And my goal is to, make a difference for our community and my neighbors, et cetera, and our children, my children. So professionally, I have about 22 plus years in government relations. I'm a public affairs professional. I've worked both inside and outside the state capitol. And I think I've learned some important skills over that time span. Most importantly, probably my responsibility and dedication to helping constituents and legislative members and assisting them. And I think that's a critical role as a council member in local government, specifically given all the issues that impact us daily. So as a director of government relations, I've done everything from help with the completion of a system-wide economic development study, as well as some sweeping reform legislation that I'm sure you may have all heard about regarding the state system of higher education. But in addition to that, or how I got there, was I do have two professional, I do have a bachelor's degree in public policy from Penn State University and a master's in public policy and legal studies from California University of Pennsylvania. So I have worked inside and outside and all around state government. So that kind of has aligned with local government experience, right? So on a day-to-day basis, I might be reading about local government legislation, et cetera. So about since 2018, I've been actively involved in attending meetings, borough council meetings, association, PSAB meetings, etc. And beyond that, I'm also dedicated and committed to my community. I've worked with everything from volunteered with our Little League to our PTO to our Education Foundation. I'm also a lifetime member of our Historical Society of Campfield. So, and I do, I'd be remiss. Safe Streets Campfield was an organization near and dear to my heart, and if not for neighbors and concerned citizens throughout the borough, who really held true to what we valued here in our community. It was through them and because of them that we were able to make progress. Regarding priorities, et cetera, heading into the May primary, I conducted a survey asking feedback from community members. And, whether it's from parks to playgrounds to policing to public safety, we all know local government really does impact us from a day-to-day basis. But through that conversation and through, activities and outreach that we've done over the summer, in addition to the survey, we really had an opportunity to learn what was important to residents. So I've identified, 4 priorities: a safe, accessible community, affordable, responsive services, communication and collaboration, as well as transparency and openness. And I would note with regard to climate change, and did note that as a topical on the questionnaire. Fortunately, the borough is working in that regard and working with students to develop a climate action plan that hopefully would be implemented. So in closing, we are fortunate to have some really wonderfully qualified candidates. And as for myself, I consider myself as someone who listens fairly and thinks critically and understands the importance of balancing the needs, not just of council, but of our residents. So, and balancing that with what we need presently and in the future. So those are the attributes I think I have, and those is what I would continue to do as a council person if elected. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Jennifer. Thank you. Moving over to the Campfield School Board, Jocelyn Bucks. Is Jocelyn on the line?
Yep, I'm here. Thank you. I just want to thank Capital Region Stands Up for the opportunity in order to speak tonight. And my name is Jocelyn Bucks, pronounced like a book. I am running for school board director for Campfield School District. By way of background, I'm a long-term resident, 18 years in Campfield. I grew up in central Pennsylvania. My husband and I chose to move to this community because we knew of Campfield's reputation for academic excellence, and we liked that small community feel. Today, we have 3 children in the district that range from 2nd grade to 7th grade to 10th grade. My bachelor's degree by way of educational background was in psychology. I went back to school and got my teaching certification in elementary education from Wilson College and did teach for a few years within the public school setting. But ultimately, I ended up honing and crafting a career for myself in healthcare human resources, where I've been for the past 20 years and currently serve as a vice president of talent development for my organization. Last year, I completed my master's in business administration from Messiah University. And I view running for school board as a unique opportunity for me to be able to apply my personal and professional experience and service to my community. It's a challenging time right now across the country for so many different reasons. And while COVID was certainly the impetus for me to research what a school board does, the decisions they make, and to start attending our school board meetings, my want to run is not based on any one particular issue. Rather, sort of, it was like my aha moment where, I sort of have this fundamental belief that we step up and serve, not when times are easy, but when they're difficult and we feel like we might have something to contribute. So I really felt compelled to run. I believe that my work in human resources, which can be very broad and general, my years though have been spent in the operational spectrum. So I've done so many different things that I think would be relevant to serving in the position of a school board member. And I'll just give you some examples. Obviously, in employee relations, you have to do a lot of, have difficult conversations, do a lot of listening, working through challenging situations, addressing fears around safety, certainly this past year on the part of our healthcare workers, but also not just physical safety, but psychological safety and emotional well-being. Certainly addressing issues of inclusivity and diversity, succession planning, recruitment and retention, employee relations, education and training. And all of that, I believe, has prepared me for some of the challenges our school boards are currently facing. So my want and hope as a potential school board member is to be able to apply these same skills in service and support to our schools and as an advocate for the community. Issues I care about, first, a continuous focus on safety. We need to keep our kiddos in school, and in order to do so, we have to ensure that our schools are a safe environment for all students and staff. We still have catching up to do. I see this with my own children. We need to remain focused on closing the academic gaps that may exist given the past year and a half. Transparency is important. I see that there's some fear out there, and in some cases, a climate of distrust that currently exists. And we need to make sure that we're communicating timely and effectively, and that the access to information is there. And I would certainly support that as a school board member. The quality of public education, obviously, we want to maintain Campfield's reputation for excellence, and this encompasses the curriculum and programmatic offerings. We need to ensure that we're preparing our students how to think critically and to take into account multiple perspectives and experiences, in addition to seeking multiple sources of information in order to prepare them for an ever increasingly diverse world. And we also need to continue to focus on, evolve, and address the social and emotional needs of our students. I feel strongly about that. And finally, budget is certainly a concern. In Camp Hill, we're small and landlocked with regard to our tax base, so we have to be fiscally responsible in order to ensure our district's long-term solvency. So as a candidate for school board, I know the importance of being able to work collaboratively, to learn from others, to apply the information gathered in order to make well-informed decisions. I understand the need to be an effective communicator and to support strong, respectful communication between the board and the community, the teachers, administration, children. And last but not least, I expect to do a lot of listening, certainly to the concerns on the part of the community, and making sure that I serve as a strong advocate, first and foremost, in providing every student in the Camp Hill schools the opportunity to grow and achieve an excellent public education. So thank you again for this opportunity to talk tonight. You can find me on Facebook. My Facebook page is Books4 Board. Thank you.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Karen Maya, please, also for the school board for Camp Hill.
Yep. Hi, I'm Karen Maya, and I'd also like to thank you for this opportunity. And I'm also running for a 4-year term on the Camp Hill School Board for school director. Really, in terms of what brought me to the decision to run right now, it really is largely that, I think it also started with the kinds of things that I started to do and learn during COVID. I started attending school board meetings the same way Jocelyn did, and it did open my eyes to how the school board works, at least to the degree that I could see from an outsider. And it also really, because of this last year and a half, and the amount of just isolation and also fear that seems to be happening in our community in some ways. I just really felt like this was a time when change could happen in certain areas, and certain kinds of improvements around inclusivity, around belonging of every student might really happen. And that is not to say that our schools are not already really good, and that children don't thrive there. They certainly do, and we have wonderful, wonderful staff and faculty. But there is always room for improvement, and I think this time, really, both around the isolation and also around the realizations and the openness for some, but also the fear for others around issues of social and racial justice. Those issues coming to the fore are a big part of why I decided to run. I really think this is a time when we can be very deliberate about being inclusive and helping every single child in a school district and everyone in a community to feel like they belong. And I think that takes deliberate steps toward inclusiveness and also just clarity when people are pushing back on that. So that's really, and I think that inclusiveness includes not just school climate, but also curriculum. How can we bring more diverse curriculum to our students in the things they read, in the innovators they're exposed to, in all subjects, and also in history in particular, and in the ways that history affects every subject. How can we really be much more comprehensive and take a real honest and critical look at our history and at how it affects people now? And that's, those things will both add children who, children of color, LGBT youth, children who may be in the minority in terms of numbers in our school district and in many settings, will see themselves represented in what they learn, and other children will have a window into into that world, which, as Jocelyn said, the world is getting more and more diverse, and our children are going to be going out into that world. And it's really important that they do that, I think, with critical thinking skills and with an honest picture of what folks have been through, both their own ancestors and themselves, and the ancestors and the other children around them, and the children around them themselves. In terms of my qualifications, I'm a clinical psychologist. I have focused my entire career, both clinically and research-wise, on child trauma. And currently, I'm administrative, so I'm working as the Senior Director of Quality Management for a public behavioral health organization. So I think all of those things, give me some of the knowledge that I think will be helpful in a school district in terms of children's needs and strengths and how to help them thrive. And also, I've been a college professor as well, and I have sat on a school board before. Again, I think we have fabulous teachers. We have a great district. Improvement is, always what we're going for, essentially. And this is really about giving more tools to get there and to be more inclusive. Thanks.
Thank you, Karen. Moving over to East Pennsboro, Mike Alsher, please.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mike Alsher. I am running for one of the Board of Commissioner spots in East Pennsboro. Just by way of background, I've lived in East Pennsboro, my wife and I, for 24 years. We have 2 children, a daughter and a son. They're in their mid-20s now. I'm retired. I was an attorney at PennDOT for over 25 years. I did a lot of their litigation work involving highway and bridge construction. So as you know, PennDOT enters into hundreds of contracts every year for highway and bridge work, and frequently claims come up. So when they can't get resolved and the lawyers get involved, that's when I would get called. And I worked there were a few of us, and we did a lot of that. That was a lot of my work. And as anything, when you're in an organization long enough, you end up just getting a lot of stuff dumped on you, as it were. So I got involved in a lot of different things, including municipal contracts, because a lot of times state and federal money would get funneled through PennDOT for municipal contract work. So I'm somewhat familiar with that. But when I retired a few years ago, I must admit I didn't like the way the country was heading under former President Trump, and so I started getting involved in grassroots political work. I started attending Democratic Club meetings here in East Pennsboro. I became a committee man. I started attending other grassroots groups like the Indivisible group Capital Region Indivisible, or 321 Indivisible, which became Capital Region Stands Up. And full disclosure, I'm a member of Capital Region Stands Up. In fact, I'm the treasurer of Capital Region Stands Up. And I'm on the leadership committee. I attend the leadership committee meetings. I'm not sure how much I contribute, but I do attend them faithfully. But anyway, you know, the reason I'm running, obviously, you know, I'm concerned about being a community. And that's why I got involved in grassroots political work. And I've been attending a lot of East Penn committee meetings, commissioner meetings. And I think given my background, I think I have a lot to offer. A lot of the work I got involved was very, sort of complex and very intensive. And I think I can, if you've attended meetings, you realize that to be an effective commissioner, it does require a lot of work, a lot of reading. You have to meet with people. You have to not only meet with your constituents, but township employees and the sort of the people who have a vested interest in things. And it does require a lot of time. And I am retired. I think I have the time necessary to devote to the job. There are important issues. One of the most important things I think is transparency. I think, especially with the pandemic, it made things very difficult, but I think, meetings have to be recorded and agendas have to be publicized and meeting minutes have to be published, and all those things are somewhat lacking in my township. And oversight is important. I think we have to really look at the nickels and dimes of the budget and really get into, is the money being effectively spent? And I must say, over the past year or so, I have gotten involved in certain particular issues in East Pennsboro involving the climate, involving police. I'd say those are my two issues that are most to heart. But again, there's a lot of issues that Township deals with, everything from codes to zoning to planning. So there's a lot on your plate. I'd say if you want to help, you could go to the East Penn Democratic Club Facebook page. I did leave my contact information in the chat. So please feel free to contact me, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mike. Is there Christine Tida on? Okay, very good. So we'll move to Dr. Pete. Thanks for joining.
All right, testing, 1, 2, 3. Hey, this is Dr. Pete Petitsis. People call me Dr. Pete. Am I coming through okay? Hey, so I'm just introducing myself. I live in Enola right now. I'm running for school board with East Pennsboro. I'm a registered Republican. We live in a global world, but we live very much locally. Our zip code matters. Evidently, the studies are out there that longevity is very much tied to where you grow up and where you throw ball and where you see your friends and your neighbors. So, the stakes are very high. Not just who gets to become school board, but perhaps what influences just how long each one of us are going to live and what quality of life that will be. I am a doctor. My wife is a lawyer. We're all local here, and I have 4 kids in the school district. I have 3 in the elementary school right now and 1 in the middle school. I'm from a small town in Pennsylvania. That's where I grew up, in a little place near Racetown Lake. I like small towns. I like suburbs. I went through the school system in Pennsylvania, proud Pennsylvania, went to Juniata College, went to Penn State for an MBA, went to Geisinger's Medical School up in Scranton, and then was trained in emergency medicine in Danville. And now I work at Holy Spirit, taking care of probably a lot of friends and family who are on this call. I first felt called to run for school board because I had 4 kids who were, in my opinion, missing out on some really key resources and moments in their life as a result of a global lockdown and a local lockdown, which I think now in retrospect, people realize was really over the top. And I think being a doctor, especially in the emergency room, is an incredible insight to the realities of our local experience with this pandemic. Again, we plan and think globally, but we live in a zip code. And I'm in the front lines of the emergency room of our local area, and it's very intense as of late. With that said, though, I think all of these restrictions are really an ethical discussion. Sometimes it's not about molecules that make or break any of these policies. You know, we need to understand what we're willing to live for, and in some cases, what we're willing to die for, and what we think matters for our kids, not just for this year, but for coming generations. I think there was a very startling statistic last spring about a massive amount of kids that were failing a class. And I'm sure this pattern must have been pretty statewide, because the governor wouldn't have offered a wonderful repeat year with nothing to lose if there hadn't been a lot of struggles. You know, how does that stack up against the casualties of COVID? I don't know how you translate it, but all I can say is it's not good. And I think there are very simple, common sense things that we can all do. And as we all try to act in the best way that we can with the resources that we have and the knowledge that we know about science and medicine and society, you know, maybe some of it's voodoo to some extent, but maybe that's all we got. And so I will encourage people to wear masks. I can tell you right now, our hospital in this region are just completely overrun with sick people. And most of the people getting COVID right now are those that were not vaccinated. But they're doing fine. Most of them are going home and watching Netflix and drinking chicken soup and, you know, enjoying 2 weeks off. If they're not a healthcare worker, then they still have to go to work, but slightly bitter. But, you know, the point is that we're all getting through this. And our kids have a lot at stake here. They need to keep up with their studies. They need to build their future. So I have a two-system approach for why I think I'm going to be a good candidate for this school board. One is that I have 4 kids in the system, and I can, on literally a daily basis, get feedback across 4 different grades as to what's going on and what's important, what's not, what's working, what's not, what's being emphasized and what's not being emphasized. And things as simple, and again, I'm all about just optimizing what we can, but things as simple as like the drop and pick up in the mornings. You know, can we do something a little different to make it more efficient? Maybe. You know, can we encourage more science fairs? Can we get more kids in the gifted program, for crying out loud? There's got to be more than just a few kids that are gifted in our school system. I don't know what that's all about, but we got to at least make kids feel gifted, you know, so that they can become excellent, because sometimes it's just the power of suggestion. Next, I think we gotta get our kids masked, and it's, you know, I'm sure it's an evolving science, but it's the least we can do. The next sort of second prong is this idea that we need to look at greatschools.org and really see what makes people move to our region. There are wonderful families across America and across Pennsylvania that want to call Enola their home. And if we have a 5 out of 10 on our rankings, you know, it just doesn't look good. No one wants to do anything that's 5 out of 10. So anyway, so excited to join the group, bring to resources to that discussion, and thanks for having me tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Pete. Moving over to Hamden Township, we have Ryan Hargett.
I am here. Thank you very much. So I started running for Hamden Township in 2019, in part because of this very group in the bridge room, where the woman sitting next to me really pushed me on why I wasn't running for anything. And so I've gotten involved, and I'm back for a second round to run for Hamden Township Commissioner. I'm running as a Democrat, moderate Democrat, trying to support opportunities for our students by supporting businesses and facilitating collaboration, improving communication, cultivating diversity, promoting equity, enhancing safety. I'm an educator by training. I work over in West Shore School District, so dealing with the pandemic conversations is something I do during the day. But prior to the pandemic, there are lots of things I've done for schools that I believe will help me as a commissioner, because schools and townships and counties all need to work together. In Hamden, we need to work to improve our communication. In 2019, we finally got them to post the board minutes online. As other candidates have said, we'd like to see board meetings recorded so they can be there for archival purposes. I'm concerned with the number of construction waivers we approve without necessarily full discussion and full disclosure as to what's going on. The community doesn't understand why certain waivers are approved, and we need to do a better job on communicating those waivers that are approved, and maybe not approve as many waivers, but have people actually follow the rules that have been adopted. I'll stop there and defer my time for future if there are any questions. But I do appreciate the opportunity to be here and meet with you in this Zoom capacity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. David Fish?
Hey, Tim, I'm also running for Cumberland County Recorder of Deeds. Do I try to do both at one time, or do I get time for the other one?
I'll cut you a deal. You can eat into some of Ryan's time.
Okay, cool. I'll do it. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is David Fish, and I know I see a lot of faces I know, some good fellow activists on this page as well. Well done. We need more of that. I am also running for Hampton Township Commission with Ryan, and a lot of what Ryan said I was going to say about the waivers and about the current Republicans that are sitting on the board and have been there forever. We need term limits. We need to get rid of the people who are not putting the residents first. We need to stop putting developers first. We need to work on keeping green space. We need to, as Ryan said, making sure that the developers follow the rules like we have to. Too many waivers that they're getting. We're also going to make sure that we can start developing and following the plan that was established back in 1990 and then again in 2014, which is going to preserve green space above Interstate 81, because right now that's going away. I started with, there was 5 of us in 2017, 2018 that started the Hampton Township Democratic Club because we were sick and tired of, first of all, what happened in 2016, but the fact that there was no Democratic infrastructure in Hampton Township and there were no Democratic candidates. We wanted to fill the ballot. We did that in 2019 and we're trying again this year, which brings me to the other point, the other office I'm running for. We cannot ask Democrats to come out and vote if we don't have candidates. At the end of the petitioning period this year, before the primary, we only had 1 Democratic candidate for the 7 open county seats. And I said, that's not gonna work. One of my previous jobs for 16 years was a television director producer. And when I see something I don't like, I say, let's fix this. Let's see what we can do. So I came up with the idea of, let's do a writing campaign. All we needed was 250 votes on the primary ballot to get a candidate put on the November ballot. I said, I'll take a quarter of deeds. I realized there was a need for that. I'll get to that in a second. Let's get 5 more. We put the word out. They got me elected on 1,400 votes. I wish we'd gotten some more candidates, but we'll work on that. As for why I'm running for recorder of deeds, I've heard that the current person, Tammy Shearer, didn't show up for an entire year. She said COVID was the reason, and her staff was doing at-home Zoom stuff, which a lot can be done. But there had to be somebody in the office because there's a lot of stuff, paperwork still has to be turned in, and she wasn't there. Development plans have to be turned in. I won't let that happen. I will show up to work. It's a job I want to do. It's a job, my 40 years experience of managing all kinds of operations and businesses and groups of all size is perfect for it. As I said, I was a television director producer for 16 years. I was also an intelligence analyst. I was a stay-at-home dad for 10 years. That should give me, I guess, working with children does give me a lot of experience working with politicians. As a director, working with on-air talent definitely gives me experience working with a lot of politicians. But I want to modernize the Recorder of Deeds office more. I'm going to do a lot more online access for stuff. I want to lower fees for residents and make the developers pay their fair share. If they're going to destroy our traffic patterns, if they're going to create monster developments that increase pollution, increase climate change gases, increase the need for more trash collection, et cetera, if they're going to impact the lives of the residents, then they're going to pay for what it needs to fix it. And I'm your guy. Please vote for me. You can vote for me twice. I'll put my contact info in the chat, and there's a link to donate. Please donate, because I'm running for 2 offices not just one, two. So I need 3 times the money because one of those is a county raise. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, David. There's some phone numbers that I cannot identify, so I'll ask if Nate Silcox has joined. Okay. Moving to Lower Allen Township, Joseph Schwartz on the call.
Yep, I'm here. Good evening, and thank you everybody for having me. My name's Joe Schwartz. I'm running for Lower Allen Township Commissioner. You know, I guess as a brief introduction, I'm an attorney with 9 years of combined experience in real estate law, municipal law, and law enforcement. In my current position, I work at the Office of Attorney General in tobacco enforcement, making the tobacco companies pay their fair share and ensuring that they live up to the promises that they made in the master settlement agreement, and going after e-cigarette manufacturers who are trying to addict another generation of children. As a disclaimer, my employment by the Office of Attorney General is not does not constitute an endorsement by the Attorney General. Three of the I'll try to go sort of macro and then work my way down in terms of issues that I think are most important to me. So the three overarching issues that I think are most important to me, especially from a municipal perspective, are public safety, housing equity, and health equity. Those issues deal with the most basic needs that we all need to meet in order to be productive, happy, healthy citizens. So the ways that there are several ways that I think that that we can improve those things and make sure that the township's working for all of us instead of just some of us. First, I want to prioritize investing in public safety services. Our police department's done an excellent job over the past few years, taking steps to ensure accountability and professionalism. They've been hiring public safety officers to deploy in less dangerous situations, which we know reduces potentially dangerous interactions with citizens. They've deployed body cameras, and they've invested in more stringent accreditations and training to make sure that their officers are keeping the peace in as professional a way as possible. I also something that surprised me when I moved to the township, although I've seen it before. Some of the first pieces of mail that I received were requests for donations from the fire companies and the EMS service, which I thought was odd because you know, what are all these property taxes that we're paying and this earned income tax that I'm paying every year? What is that going to if it's not going to vital services like this? It is, but those services aren't really fully paid. If you notice, you know, firefighters are half the time they are at a fundraiser. They are fundraising constantly, and with how hard their job is, I don't think that we should make firefighters sing for their lunch. Similarly with EMS, the mailer that goes out for them is like some kind of subscription service, where essentially you can pay a flat fee every year for this service, and then your first ambulance call is free of charge. Essentially, it's like insurance, but the only people that need to get that are the people who are most vulnerable and most likely to be in a more compromised financial position because you know, they're more likely to be on a fixed income. So I'd like to find ways in which we can more fully fund those services so that we don't have to put that burden on our first responders and our paramedics and the most vulnerable residents in the township. And I want to find ways that we can keep working to ensure accountability among the police, because I think if you don't stay on top of that, then you start running into issues like you have in some other cities where there's a complete disconnect between the people, the government, and their police department. I don't want to see that happen. I only have about 25 seconds left, so I'll also say that I want to promote housing equity and health equity through proactive and deliberate planning of redevelopment. We're going through a phase of redevelopment over the next couple of decades where I think we have the opportunity to increase housing supply while also making our neighborhoods more walkable and bikeable, which would make the township healthier, happier, and safer. And you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Vote Schwartz. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank
Sorry
you,
for-
Joseph. Is there a Dean Vallone who's joined us? Okay.
I saw him
Sure.
earlier, so he might.
Sure.
try to- Oh,
Yeah,
hey, Dean.
thanks, Joe. Dean Vallone here. Can everyone hear me okay? I wound up on my telephone. My wife and I were having trouble dialing or getting in. We were in and then something happened on the computer. So can you hear me?
Yep, perfect.
Okay, great. Thank you. My name is Dean Vallone. I'm running for Township Commissioner in Lower Allen Township. I live with my wife, Vicki Vallone, in the I guess we'd call it what's left of the rural nature or the rural part of Lower Allen Township out by the Lisburn area. We're seeing, a tremendous amount of growth in the township. So it seems like some of the rural areas are starting to close in. We moved into the township in 2014. And prior to moving in and agreeing to purchase the property that we live on, I went through about 10 minutes worth of meeting minutes in Lower Allen and looked at the current agendas, or the agendas for the past 10 years or so, as far as back as I could look, and just to try to get to know the municipality, the people in the municipality. And for the most part, I discovered that things have been pretty good in Lower Allen Township, but particularly sitting in this part of Cumberland County. We are seeing a tremendous amount of growth here in Lower Allen. And as a first term incumbent commissioner, and this is my first round in politics, so I'm in the in the local scene here in politics, I'll say, for my first time, which I really enjoy. I am a community-oriented type person. I mean, civic engagement is something that's always interested me very much. And, I'm seeking re-election. I feel that my first term over the last 3.5 years has been very productive. I quickly gained the trust of my fellow commissioners in Lower Allen Township. They nominated me to be board president back in 2019, or excuse me, the beginning of 2020. And I'll be the president until we reorganize at the end of this year. And should I be elected, I'll probably seek that again. The added responsibilities and the accountability of the role as president has really, I feel, given me the momentum to continue to serve and empower the people here in Lower Allen Township. I strongly believe that there's so much potential here in Lower Allen Township, but it has to continue to come from the people. And when I ran in 2017, I chose to run on a few, platforms, as you will. And the main one was bridging the gaps between those who serve and those who are served. And while that just sounds simple, I felt that was a place to really start and to entrench myself into. Back in 2017, there were no registered Democrats on the ballot for these two seats, and I took it upon myself to secure one of those seats or spots as well on the ballot by going around talking to folks, and was able to get enough write-in votes at the primary to position myself on both sides. And I was very, very happy with that, because it gave me this great opportunity to not only go out and meet people, but to understand what the needs of everyone would be. And from that point, I was only hoping that I'd have that opportunity again this time to be on both sides, to show people that I'm still for everybody. We do have two candidates on the Democratic side this time around. I know Joe here. I've spoken with him a few times, and we've talked. We have a very cordial election, or I shouldn't say cordial. I don't, want to say that, but we have a very amicable, I believe, election going on here in Lower Allen Township right now. And I truly believe that in the end, Lower Allen's going to be and continue to be a very good place for people to live, work, and raise a family. In the last few years, in the questionnaire, I really appreciated the question about the climate change. And I appreciate that from this perspective. Municipalities, what I'm finding, we're
30
limited
seconds.
based on, thank you. We're limited based on certain mandates and things like that come down, that get laid on municipalities. But where we can make a difference, I believe we should absolutely try every single time regarding climate change and issues such as climate change. One of the things I pointed out in the questionnaire was we had recently taken the initiative to work a property that the township had owned, or the development authority of township had owned. And thank you.
Thank you, Dean. We can move on to New Cumberland with Joan Ernie, please.
Good evening, everyone as well. Thanks to Capital Region Act Up, and a particular thank you to Kathy Yorkovic, an old friend and colleague from my state days. I'm Joan Ernie. I'm running as for mayor of New Cumberland. I am the Democratic candidate. I have lived here as a child. I grew up here, and I moved back about 30 years ago to raise my son, and my mother lived with me until recently when she passed. And I came here because it really is a wonderful community to raise children. It's a great place to be. But as I came back, I really realized that this is a very conservative, historically conservative area, and there were things in our political environment that just didn't feel right. And I felt that maybe I can contribute. I have a law degree from Widener University School of Law. I have a bachelor's from Penn State. And I have 35 years of experience in leadership positions around behavioral health. I was an appointment under Governor Rendell as the Deputy Secretary for Mental Health and Substance Use. For the Commonwealth, I worked under Governor Ridge initially. And then I most recently retired from being the CEO of Community Behavioral Health, which was the Philadelphia's Medicaid program for behavioral health, serving 700,000 recipients with a staff of about 500. I would return every weekend to care for both my mom and my house here in New Cumberland, and really made that commitment when I came back to get involved, because I didn't necessarily have a lot of time being a single mom and also having the kind of positions that I had previously. Since I decided to run, it's really been interesting. This is my first attempt at being a candidate, and I can see and understand why there is reluctance. It's been a little challenging here in New Cumberland, surprisingly, quite frankly, but it is a great place. I am so glad that I've been here during COVID, because we have lots of green space and we can walk around, and there really is a sense of community here. I would say I have talked to quite a few of the residents. I've hosted walk and talks. And I also helped facilitate a COVID vaccination site here in New Cumberland. I have really tried to bring resources around behavioral health to the community. And I've been participating and going to, obviously, attending community meetings and the Borough Council. Really identified 4 priorities that I want to focus on. The first is communication. Currently, New Cumberland does not have a social media platform. We have lots and lots and lots of community members who have lots and lots of Facebook pages and lots of comments to be made, but there is no official site. And there really is the need for a more comprehensive communication strategy. The second is that there is, and that kind of corresponds with my second priority, which is fiscal transparency. We really have a tremendous opportunity with a revitalization effort that's been going on for some time in New Cumberland. However, the kind of financing of that through state grants and borough council dollars and tax dollars, et cetera, is not clear and should be. Don't think that there's anything nefarious, but also there really seems, for me, there should be an expectation that we move that forward. Third is that really put forward to council an infrastructure proposal. The sidewalks, trees, things that people care about are in some disrepair here, and it's time to clean it up. We need to give people notice. We need to give them time. And if we have an opportunity through the federal government's infrastructure bill, we want to be planful and have a strategic plan around what it is we need, so we might be able to take advantage of some of those infrastructure dollars. And then last, but certainly not least, is to create a more welcoming environment. New Cumberland had 16 weeks of peaceful protests following the George Floyd murder. Those protests were really to try to raise awareness and insight into the challenges that those individuals who are minorities in our community face day in and day out. We had great cooperation from our police. We had a wonderful, really, I think, good experience with those protests. But there is a sense that we could do better, and we really could create a welcoming environment by really hosting a real commitment to diversity, et cetera. I think as a mayor, your responsibility is to have vision and to lead and to really reflect the community that you want to be. So I thank you for your time, and I appreciate being here so much. Thank you.
Tim, I think you're muted.
And there's that. Thank you, June. I think there's a couple of phone numbers I haven't been able to identify. Is there a Fred Miles on the line? Okay. Moving to Upper Allen Township, how about a Karen Overly Smith?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can, perfectly.
Okay, hello. My name is Karen Overly Smith, and I'm running for Upper Allen Township Commissioner. It's a 4-year term, and there's 2 positions that are open at the general election. I'm running to protect the health, safety, and the economic stability of our community. We're almost all entirely built out with plans. The residences aren't completely built out, but we have almost all of our areas developed. So there's a huge impact on infrastructure. My background is in infrastructure. I was a skilled tradesperson in power plant utilities. I've plowed snow and dropped cinders, as well as I have a background in regional planning, a master's degree from Westchester University, and chose to use that with a civil engineering firm. And I wrote text ordinance for municipalities for zoning and helped them to develop comprehensive plans. So my background is working on developing comprehensive plans for the community, working on surveys with the citizens, and then developing implementation ordinances. A lot of times I would see from working with the townships and the rural townships and more urban, suburban areas that the zoning and build out doesn't match the original intention. So they have to do some more updating of their comprehensive plan. So as far as transparency, I've been attending the Board of Commissioners meetings for Upper Allen Township, and I found that rather than addressing these comprehensive planning things, the developers will come in at this time with a request for a hearing and a spot rezoning. And it increases the number of units that we'll have on the line for residential, and have a bigger impact on our infrastructure for the water pressure and for services that will be needed for that. So one of the observations that I've seen is the transparency. The public hearing is there, but a lot of times residents just don't show up and see that there's going to be this impact coming down. They'll notice it later on when the water pressure goes down. For example, like Upper Allen Elementary School, Shepherdstown Elementary School has a water pressure problem. They have no water tank. The Township Board of Commissioners gave them an occupancy permit that's dependent on someone being designated the fire watcher. So in the meantime, the school district is trying to work with the developer to put in the water tank. And this is the second occupancy permit that's been given to these two townships. So I have a concern about the water pressure and the safety. I have experience serving on Suburban Lancaster Sewer Authority for 8 years as Secretary Treasurer. So I've led in that respect and helped to manage the budgets for those things. Also, my three things, I guess, were I have the experience in the leadership with the municipal government things. I have years of working with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania as a planner analyst in the Community and Economic Development Department on community development block grant funds and federal programs that go to local governments. So with the experience of working with the local government, the counties and the state, I think that would go a long way to providing background and experience to be a Board of Commissioner for Upper Allen Township. I think that I could represent all of the residents with leadership experience, and I've been retired for 1 year now and living in Upper Allen Township for 2 years with my husband, Chris Smith. And we're in the Messiah Village retirement community. And we're also a part of the Democratic headquarters for Messiah Village. That's one of our interests. So basically, I was helping the Democratic committee on some other campaigns, and it evolved into you have experience and knowledge that many other people don't have. And there's the opportunity for the general election, the primary and general election, to be a candidate for a Board of Commissioners. So I threw in my hat in reference to, we want to have a democracy and we don't want to have incumbents running unopposed. So we want to provide qualified candidates. And if not, when will you step up when you're asked? So I'm stepping up, and I look forward to the general election. And my name again is Karen Overly Smith, and I'm a candidate for Upper Allen Township Board of Commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. We appreciate it.
Sure.
And I mentioned before the second piece of this would be Q&A. Before we move there, I'll ask Alyssa if we have any questions. I think you might have heard earlier about a questionnaire and a mention about climate change. I should mention for those who did not introduce themselves and are here to hear and perhaps ask questions. CRSU did provide questionnaires to each of the candidates to gain more insight on their views and their positions. And so those questionnaire responses will be posted on the website along with this recording. We also do plan on making endorsements as a CRSU organization around October 1st. With that, Alyssa, did we have any questions come in?
We have not received any questions yet, but if anyone has questions to put in the chat, go ahead and do so. And if it's directed to a specific candidate, you can mention that as well. You can send it to me directly. If you just want me to ask it as a general question and don't want it attributed to you, that's fine also.
We'll hold just for a little bit to see if anything comes up.
Oh, we have one here. Not directed at anyone specifically, but how would you contrast your perspective from your opponent from the competing party? If anyone wants to take that one, otherwise I can put it towards someone directly, but is there anyone on the call who wants to contrast their perspective about their priorities running for office to their to the candidate from a competing party?
I'll jump in.
Thanks, Ryan.
Hampton Township, again, this is my second time running. I believe in communication, two-way communication between the township and the community. We've got a township who actively refuses to use Facebook. Individual commissioners will post in a community group, but they won't use the township Facebook page because they're concerned about records retention and right to know law. While Facebook isn't the end all be all, I do wish there was some social media that the township business would use. We use it for police, we use it for the golf course, we use it for Parks and Rec, but we won't use it for township business. I think our waivers, we approve too many waivers. While there's a time and a place for a waiver, when the rule says we need 50 feet because we want the fire trucks to be able to turn around, and someone comes through and says, well, we measured your fire truck and it only needs a 47-foot radius. I don't think that's a waiver that should be approved, particularly when developing on a private load also needed a waiver. So it's a waiver on a waiver. Let's have some rules. Let's be consistent with them. Let's be transparent with them and do it in a way that's respectful to all of our community members. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Ryan. Anyone else want to tackle that one? If not, I have another question.
I will. Hi,
Thank you.
this is Dave Fish. There are 3 open seats in Hampton Township Board of Commissioners this year, which means us Democrats could become the majority and make some real meaningful changes for the people. One of the people that we're running against is Sherry Chippo. She was appointed to replace longtime dedicated public servant Ken Fretro when he died. In 2020, Joe Biden won 6 out of 12 precincts. That's unprecedented. There's a lot of people who do not like the tactics of Donald Trump. Sherry Chippo not only attended Donald Trump's treason fest on January 6th, she organized buses. She also organized buses to a December 12th Stop the Steal rally in DC. And she organized buses to a November 12th Stop the Steal rally in DC. She attended Donald Trump's COVID spreading event in the Hershey Center. She is Donald Trump's best buddy, and she must be stopped. Let's get some common sense Democrats in there and get rid of these Trumpers once and for all. Thank you.
And this is Joan. Ernie, I'll respond as well. So, and running for mayor of New Cumberland, one of the things that happened when I came back is that our current mayor made some really unprecedented comments in the midst of the George Floyd murder about his support of Confederacy, his support of Confederate flags, his kind of approach to race relations generally. I found that he was perpetuating and aligning himself with fear mongers and, really some very, very challenging conversations. And New Cumberland already has lots to overcome in our history around being designated as the White Shore and, not being a standout or stand up around race and welcoming community. And that really was what prompted me. I will say, to his credit, he has really stopped that rhetoric, and I think has recognized that that is not going to help him get moved forward. But it was there, and it was something that prompted me to run. I would say secondly is that this has been a community that has had a very long history of a few people running the town, all good folks, really well intended. But, you know, there are changing demographics, and there are people who really want to be very intimately involved with the work of the day. And so it's really a time that we can change, and that we can really promote an opportunity for transparency. I heard that as a theme throughout tonight. It certainly is true here. That, you know, the opportunity to really share more information with community members and also create a caring environment for residents, I think is really a key difference between myself and the current mayor.
Thank you, Joan. I have a couple of questions that are in the chat to me. Does anybody else want to jump in? You don't feel like you have to, but I do want to give anyone else a chance if they want to address that question.
Very briefly, I think that, you know, while Dean and I might have a few philosophical differences of opinion, I think in terms of temperament, he and I are pretty similar. One of my opponents, Josh Nagy, I've seen some of his campaign literature, and the only thing that I could glean from it is that he's interested in cutting spending when we are already, in my opinion, not funding vital public services enough. So that's my opinion. I don't think that I agree with his stance on township spending.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, before I lose track of the questions that are going by, I'm going to move on to the next one, which is for Dean specifically, and asks about what your township is currently doing. And I'm sorry if it's not township, I already lost the question up there. What you're currently doing to address climate change and what plans are in place related to climate change.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I appreciate the turn back on that since I went over my time. And what we're doing, and again, I'll preface it with, you know, I think municipalities become limited sometimes with how aggressive we can be, and sometimes our hands are tied, and then sometimes we just have mandates that are put on us. However, I'll go back to where I ended before, and that is the Lower Allen is actually in the process right now of devoting an entire parcel that was owned by the Development Authority, and we've asked them to sell it back to us so that we can put an entire solar field in there, which, you know, I think everyone here can understand the implications of what that will do, not only from like cost savings or anything like that, but for what impact that would have perhaps on the environment. I think that goes without saying. The other thing that is important, and I'm surprised it hasn't come up a whole lot tonight, but like with MS4, I mean, Lower Allen, we took it real serious when that issue came up. There's many of us that just truly believe in, you know, what we have to do is our part, and that, as you know, is an unfunded mandate coming down on the municipalities and residents in our region. But, you know, we've hired an MS4 coordinator. We chose not to sub that work out so that we have that in-house, a person that's a specialist, so to speak. And we're finding that we are able to really work on the all the components of what MS4, the MS4 permit is requiring Lower Allen to do, and I believe we're going over and above. So and those are the only two things that I really just feel like I want to point out, because it's more in what's our interest, and when we're, let's say, forced to do something, or in case of the solar field, we weren't forced to do that. We chose to do that. Our manager, we gave him the green light to look at that and give us a proposal. and what that would do for the township and all of that. So I believe that we can do our part even at a municipal level, as long as we have people in that are willing to go down that road. So I hope that somewhat answers your question.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dean. I'm glad you got a chance to finish up. You didn't get to
Thank
see
you.
you didn't get to see the 30-second warning since you're not on video. The next question is for school board candidates, particularly East Penn, but we'd love to hear from others. It's just being addressed to the East Penn candidate from the questioner. And that is, how do you feel about mask mandates for students in our schools right now?
Yeah, I
So
know
if
it's a
Dr.
hot-
Pete is still
Yeah, yeah.
on.
Yep, definitely. I know it's a hot topic nationwide, perhaps globally. I first think we have to start at what the end goal is, which is to keep the kids in school so they can get the best education and skills for life. I mean, that's the most important thing. And so, in the spectrum of being sort of hysterically paranoid and completely lax, we have to find a mid ground. And I think a mask is a reasonable compromise. There are discussions about what the right age is for vaccinations. Different countries have different recommendations, by the way. That science is still to be finalized. But I think the mask is just something that we as a society just have to, get compromise on. And I'm not saying again that means that I'm for hysteria and living in our basements, but at the same time, we have to do something. And I can tell you from a firsthand perspective, this is not from the news, Fox News, whatever, CNN, whatever, I'm in the emergency department and I'm seeing so much infection. And it's not just COVID, actually. It's RSV, it's rhinovirus. It's stuff that we didn't actually see December, January last year. And now it's August and it feels like we're in the middle of flu season and our hospital is very pressed. So this is not just conspiracy. I'm telling you that, it's a worthwhile undertaking right now. And it's a small sacrifice, but an inconvenience. But I think it's a compromise we need to make.
Thank you, Dr. Pete. Do any other school board members want to tackle that one? Or school board directors, I'm sorry, candidates?
Alyssa, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Jocelyn.
Okay, great. I was going to say, if you check out the answers to some of the questions that you asked us as candidates, that will be on the website. I answered this very concretely. Having worked in healthcare and seeing the impact of COVID, and also recognizing and knowing that we were able to take care of COVID positive patients and keep our employees safe, masks do make a difference and they do work. And I think in order to protect the safety and integrity of the schools, particularly during this pandemic where children under 12 aren't vaccinated yet, they are carriers. They're encompassing 20% of the current cases right now that we're seeing. So it's very real. If you pay attention to the science, if you care about protecting the safety and integrity of the schools and keeping children in schools, they have to mask. I mean, I think you can just look at Northern School District. They had to shut down their middle school and high school and go remote because they were not masking appropriately. So we don't just have to look to the schools down south. We can look here in our own backyard and see that. So again, I completely agree. If the primary focus is keeping our children in school and having them be safe in school, we need to mask.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Any other questions? I don't have any in the chat. If anyone wants to put anything in the chat, or do any other school board candidates want to tackle that?
Yeah, this is Karen Maya, and I was just going to completely echo what Jocelyn just said. I mean, I agree that we want our kids to stay in schools, and I think the way to do that is to keep them wearing masks to try to stop the spread. And so, yeah, I just echo everything she said. Thanks.
Thanks, Karen.
Doing a final check, Alyssa.
I don't see anything.
Okay. Well, with that, we will look to terminate our time together for the West Shore Candidates Forum. Again, thanks to everybody who was able to join. Please do look for this to be posted on the Facebook page here in the coming days. And I would invite you secondarily, it looks like most, if not all, of the candidates have Facebook pages. Please do share so that folks within your network and your orbit and prospective voters can also get a glance at your responses along with those who are running along with you or in other areas. And so with that, I wish you good night and thank you very much.
Thank you all. And to the question in the chat, the link to the recording will be posted in a Facebook group, but we can also post it along with the questionnaire responses to our website, crstandsup.org. Thank you all.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks, y'all.